Welcome back to the Protestant Reformer. I'm Gordon McGee from Go Stand and Preach, and today we will be answering one of the top search for question about God on Google, and that being, why does God allow evil and suffering? Friends, we're diving in deep to the Theodicy today. We want to begin by answering the question, why does God allow evil? And in order to answer that question, we want to dive in a little deeper and get to the origin of evil. So we're going to go to John chapter 8, verse 44 to get us started to understand where did evil come from? Where did it originate? In John chapter 8, verse 44, we read these words, Yeshua speaking, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." Few things we want to notice here. The first being that the devil, he is the author. He is the originator of evil. How do we know that? Because it says he was a murderer from the beginning. Sin is a transgression of the law. 1 John 3:4. And from the very beginning, he was a murderer. Not only that, he is the father, the author of lies. And when he tells a lie, when lying began, it originated with him. It did not originate or come from his creator. It came from him himself, right? So he is the originator of evil. That is the devil, who was not once known as Lucifer, a covering cherub in heaven. This is the origin of evil. But let's get some more insight and background to this issue over evil. We're going over to Matthew 13, verse 24, and we'll be reading verses 24 through 27 to give us some more details. And here Jesus is speaking a parable, speaking a very important parable to his followers. "Another a parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven," the kingdom of what, friends? The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man that sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? All right, so a few things here. We're actually speaking about the kingdom of heaven. But first, let's understand what's happening in the natural world so we can understand what's happening in the spiritual world. So there was a literal field. There was a literal man who owned that field, and he was sowing literal seed. And that seed was good seed. He did not sow any weeds in his field. He only wanted the wheat, but he had an enemy, and that enemy came while men were asleep, unaware to them, and he sowed in tares or weeds with the good seed, with the wheat. Now, here's the problem with tares. Tares look identical to the wheat until the harvest. So they asked a very important question. Where did these tares come from? And he goes, the enemy has done this. I have not sown them. I did not put bad seed in my field. Very important, very clear. So now as we move down to verse 28, we will begin to see the answer to the question, why does God allow evil? As we jump down to verse 28, we're going to see here very clearly why God allows and permits evil. He said unto them, An enemy have done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, no, lest while you gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with it, or with them, the good seed. Let both grow together until when? The harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to be burnt, to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Let's recap. An enemy sowed the bad seed. He did it while men were asleep. The servants want to go in and uproot all the tares, but they're told no, that they cannot do it now, because if they do it before harvest, they may accidentally take up the good with the bad, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to wait until harvest, and then we will be able to clearly identify and separate and know who's a wheat and who is a tare. So now we're going to jump down to verse 36 so we can get an explanation of this parable from Jesus himself, so there'll be no guessing on our part. Matthew 13 verse 36 says, "Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. And he answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man." That's Jesus. That's him. "I've sown good seed. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, those who accept Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. They are the children of Satan. The enemy that sowed them is the devil," that dragon. "The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so will it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity or lawlessness, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth," the lake of fire, friends, "where the wicked are destroyed and turned into ashes. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears, let him hear." So now the parable has been made plain to us. Jesus is the Son of Man. He sowed the good seed. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. The evil seed, the tares, are the wicked children, and the devil sowed them. God did not sow them. But here is the key to answering the question, why does God allow evil? If God were to prematurely destroy the wicked, he would also lose some of the righteous. Okay, this is what the parable is teaching us. If you go in and start to separate the wheat and the tares before you can clearly identify them, you're going to lose some of the good seed, some of God's children. Therefore, when Satan initially, rebelled in heaven, see Ezekiel chapter 28 and Isaiah chapter 14, and God allowed him to live, allowed Lucifer to continue on in his rebellion. He did this so that Lucifer's true character could be revealed to all the unfallen around him. So the heavenly agencies who may have had a question in their mind, well, man, is Satan correct? Is Satan wrong? What is his true character? Is God wrong? Can we trust God? This war broke out in heaven. And God in his wisdom said, I'm not going to immediately destroy evil, because that would put a question mark in everyone else's mind, the unfallen angels, as to who is Satan, and thereby there may be more angels added to his side than the third that had fallen with him. You see that in Revelation 12 verses 4. The time is necessary, friends. Giving the time for the plant to mature is necessary in this parable and in the spiritual world. That time reveals who a tare is and who a wheat is. This has to be decided and clearly seen before you can destroy the wicked. This is why God has permitted evil to continue on. Now, let me give you another illustration that can maybe drive this home for you. There was a judge who one night had gotten up to get a glass of water, and on his way to his kitchen, he ran into a burglar who had come through his window and had his television in his hand. And he turned the light switch on, and they locked eyes face to face. The thief was barefaced, and he ran out into the dark, shadowy night through the same window he came in. A day or two later, while in his courtroom, this same burglar was now appearing before him on trial for burglary. As you might imagine, the judge was very tempted to just take his gavel, throw it down, and say, guilty, and sentence him to said time. Now, had the judge done that, friends, everyone else in the courtroom would have thought the judge was not being fair, that the judge was skipping the processes and procedures. They would have found the judge to be unjust, though he would have been right in his judgment. See, the judge is the only one that knew that the thief was guilty. No one else knew. And so it is with this world that we're living in. The only person who knew Satan's true intentions in his heart was God. The only person who knows who is truly wicked and who is not is God. All the rest of us are looking on. We are onlookers. And we need this time for characters to be revealed so that we will not question God when he goes to execute judgment on the wicked. Thereby, sin will never raise up his head again, because all the universe will know that God is who he says he is, that he's a loving, just Father. This is why God has allowed evil to go on because he has a remedy for the sin problem and is going to eradicate sin for all eternity. Hallelujah. But Brother Gordon, does this answer the other part of the question? Why does God allow suffering? Friend, I would like to submit to you that suffering and evil are inseparable. Where there is evil, there will be suffering. Let me give you a definition to evil. It produces pain, distress, loss, or calamity, or which in any way disturbs the peace, impairs the happiness, or destroys the perfection of natural beings. You cannot have suffering and no evil. So as God permitted evil to go on, he also therefore permitted suffering to go on. It all comes together as a package deal, unfortunately. But God did not just sit back, friends, and do nothing, but he came and partook of that suffering. What a God we serve. Now, let me give you a practical example, a real world example as found in the Bible about suffering. Over in Job chapter 1, and chapter 2, we find an account that is very significant when answering the question, why did God allow suffering? And in Job chapter 1, verse 8, we find these words, and the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil, avoids evil, friends. Then Satan answered, and the Lord answered Yahweh and said, doeth Job fear God for naught? Has not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. Now, friends, as all the sons of God and the onlookers and angelic beings and everyone is looking on, what if Satan is right here? How do we know that Satan is wrong? Who knows that Satan is wrong? Only God knows. No one else knows if Satan is wrong. There's a question on the table and it needs to be answered. This is war going on between God and Satan. And so the only way to know and find out is to let it play out. And so we read these words in verse 12. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh. So now here's where things get interesting. Satan goes forth, and to prove his point, he destroys just about everything that Job possesses. Sheep, cattle, servants, his children, only leaving his wife and his poor body, his poor self. And what was Job's response to this suffering? Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh have taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. But this wouldn't be enough. Satan wouldn't concede. So in Job chapter 2, verse 3, we have this interaction between God and Satan. And Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil, and still he holdeth fast his integrity. You were wrong, Lucifer. You were wrong, devil. Although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. Without cause. Notice how God is still taking accountability for the actions of Satan because he permitted it. You had me move against my servant without cause, and yet he still remained faithful to me. He maintained his integrity. You are wrong. I am right. Admit that you are wrong. Concede. Verse 2, and Satan answered Yahweh and said, skin for skin. Yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thy hand now and touch his bones and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, he is in thy hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of Yahweh and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown of his head, friends. And if this wasn't enough, Job's poor wife, who had just lost 10 of her children that she had born, she was broken. And for a brief moment, she was used by the enemy to speak discouraging words to her husband. Then said his wife unto him, doest thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. You know, there are one or two responses we normally have to suffering. Either we respond like Job's wife or we respond like Job. Look at Job's response. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. So let's discuss what was accomplished by God allowing Job to suffer. 4 things. The first being, this allowed Job's true character to be revealed to himself, his wife, friends, family, God, Satan, and all the heavenly agencies. The second thing, this allowed Satan's true character to be revealed to everyone. Thirdly, this allowed opportunity for God's true character to be manifested and revealed to his creation. He responds to Job's questions in chapter 28. And then in Job 42, verse 10, we find these words, And Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also, the Lord Yahweh gave Job twice as much as he had before. Job's character is revealed. Satan's character is revealed. God's character is revealed. And most importantly, in relationship to God's character being revealed, by allowing Job to suffer, this gave opportunity for God to demonstrate his unfailing love for his created beings. None of this could have happened if we would have just skipped the process. If God would have just gone around the problem of sin, his character, our character, redemption, eradicating sin forever would have never been accomplished by avoiding the problem of sin and evil and suffering. But by permitting it to happen, this will make sure it never raises up his head ever again. I pray this answers your question. Why does God permit or allow suffering and evil? I'm Gordon McGee from Go Stand and Preach, and this is The Protestant Reformer.